let's look at this new ad that BM posted from Israel. I don't even know what it is, but I want to see it.
I lied when I told my father we'd be okay without him. My father's been gone for months, fighting. The workers have fled the farm, and here I am, alone. Every day, my mother says we may have to give up the farm. I will never let them take my home. I will fight to keep this farm. I will fight to keep my homeland of Israel. With God's help, for all Jewish people everywhere. I need you.
Wait, is this like a settlement? What is going on here? Why is there why is there a Saudi prospector on the West Bank settlement? Like, what is happening here? This is the funniest part. I guess the implication is that this guy's supposed to be Palestinian. But this is literally just like, this is either I guess it's Jordanian, maybe. I don't know. I mean, Saudi people wear this too. Yeah. This fit does not look Palestinian at all, dude. What the fuck? They went and they found a Jordanian man who is he's like one of those traffic guys. You know what I'm talking about? When like the Department of Transportation brings those things out to your neighborhood to look at the roads so that they can put like new fucking you know, I don't know, they can put like new lights on the street or whatever. What is happening here? Yeah, they're surveying the land. You were mentioned in a new Jarvis video. They're not losing their farm to settlers. They're losing the big Saudi capital. Yeah. What is this? Did you see Lindsey Graham threatens to destroy the economy of U.S. allies? Yeah. We'll look at that in a second. But anyway, I'm glad that first of all, Daddy is fighting. Workers have fled the farm, and it's like.
And here I am, alone. Every day, my mother says we may have to give up the farm. I will never let them take my home. I will fight to keep this farm. I will fight to keep my homeland of Israel. With God's help.
But that's not Israel, big dog. That's not Israel. What the fuck do you mean? You stole the farm. I mean, you, not you, you're a child, but like, Pop stole the farm. Fuck you mean? What is this? We expected to have to dedicate considerable resources to identify the Israeli soldiers in photos and videos featured in our investigation into war crimes in Gaza. But we found that soldiers often posted the material with their own names on publicly accessible platforms. Oh, yeah. No, this is... why is God censored? Come on, guys. That's... Why are you hyper-focusing on that? That's a thing that people do, okay? Yes. It's normal. Oh, my God. Like, focus on the right things here, okay? And not the wrong ones. Yeah, self-snitching in the Israeli military is like one of the most commonplace things that happens all the time. I don't know why, but the Israeli occupying force love self-snitching. I mean, I do know why. It's because they don't think that they will ever get any punishments whatsoever. So... that's the reason why. And this is great for the morale, you know? Yeah, they believe they're in the right. They believe that there will be no punishments for this whatsoever. They believe that, and understandably, they believe that there will be no punishments for this whatsoever. Because there haven't been at all. And that's it. New Curtis video, Los Pollos TV finally meets Drake. I don't think this is Curtis, man. What is this? How Israel uses sex to sell Zionism? I'm kind of down to watch this. Can we watch the new video? Why is Elon Musk like that? That's fucked up. No, stop sending me this. This is an old video, man. I troll Matt Gaetz, RFK Jr., and read MAGA at the Trump Bible. This is an old-ass video, isn't it? But yeah. Stellar Blade, the fake outrage. Oh my God, new Sean video? What the fuck? And as expected, it is 2 hours long. Oh my Lord. Sean came out and decided to do a 2-hour video on that fucking weirdo titty milk lover from Blizzard, Grums. Right? Is that his name? And all the fucking the wokeness is ruining video games Andy's out there, I guess. Just a direct shot across the bow. There's some Asmin in there too. Yeah, that's not shocking to me. His most recent video before that was on Palestine, I think. I know. 2-hour essays are ruining video games. 2-hour essays are ruining my life. Okay, that's what's ruining my life. Oh, so many good things to watch. But before we get to all of that, let's hear Israel's greatest defender, Lindsey Graham. American politicians are threatening every single ally on the planet in service of one specific ally internationally accused of war crimes. Seems crazy until you remember these politicians sent the bombs used in said war crimes.
So to any ally, Canada, Britain, Germany, France, if you try to help the ICC, we're going to sanction you.
Well, that means I want every ally. And you saw little Justin in Canada and his position.
We're going to invade Canada. No, you're not. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Sanction the entirety of the European Union.
What should the penalty be?
Sanction the entirety of the European Union. Go ahead. Make China's day. Okay? China's probably kicking back, dude. Oh my God. Xi Jinping is like, what? I can't believe they're saying this. I can't believe that they are actively negatively polarizing themselves against the remainder of the Western Hemisphere. What an incredible moment. At the behest of Israel doing a genocide? Oh, incredible work. Good job, America. You're really doing it, man. It's a great idea. Time and time again, I have repeated to all of you that seemingly don't really remember all of these things that I keep repeating over and over again, that soft power only or hard power rather, military might only works if you have soft power that works alongside it, okay? If you don't do diplomacy, all of a sudden, 800 military bases around the planet become 800 different invasions around the planet, okay? You can't have both at the same fucking time. You can't simultaneously be like, yeah, we're going to now cripple our only remaining, most powerful Western nation allies by threatening them with sanctions and also simultaneously claiming that we're going to go and fucking invade the Netherlands. You can't do that. Okay, this is accelerationist nonsense. A lot of people say, oh, America has the most powerful military on the planet. It's true. Okay, America does have the most powerful military on the planet. But even the most powerful military on the planet cannot go against the rest of the planet, okay? Like, yes, you can dominate many other countries, especially countries that have been actively destabilized ahead of time, countries that have been kept behind deliberately, okay? Formerly colonized nations. You can do that. And even then, you do that to limited success anyway, right? You maintain the fucking poppy fields for like 20 years, and then you still have to pull out of Afghanistan at the end of the day. But you cannot maintain this aggressive posture without doing diplomacy. Okay? You cannot maintain this aggressive posture all around the planet without doing diplomacy. I think a lot of people forget that. Okay? A lot of people forget that reality. A lot of people are hopped up on America is the best fumes and fail to consider the calculation if people no longer feel like America is a valuable, reliable ally. If people no longer see America as a reliable and valuable ally, all of a sudden, their military security partnerships turn into a military invasion. Okay? Think about that.
We should crush your economy because we're next. Why can't? So to any ally, Canada, Britain, Germany, France, if you try to help the ICC, we're going to sanction you.
Well, that means I want every ally, and you saw little Justin in Canada and his position. What should the penalty be?
We should crush your economy because we're next. Why can't? So to any ally, Canada.
Because we're next. He also keeps like, I mean, he is not wrong. He is technically not wrong. Because it is America's unlimited partnership with Israel that allows Israel to do all this stuff. So there is a lot of legal and certainly moral culpability here, which is precisely the reason why maybe America should take the fucking exit ramp, you know? Nope. Full tilt, baby. Full tilt. Yeah, this is literally what is happening right now. Like, America's partnerships, America's sanctions regime that has been greatly escalated post-Obama, but especially during the Obama administration, and then Donald Trump kicked it into high gear, and then Joe Biden even kicked it into higher gear, like unimaginable levels of sanctions, have created an outside, like a secondary market outside of the sphere of Western influence. It literally pushed everyone together. Okay, people talk about BRICS as though it's like a committed partnership in a similar vein to like NATO or whatever. It's not. But having said that, there is a reason why countries that are outside of the sphere of American influence, outside of the sphere of Western influence, are able to withstand these crippling sanctions regimes. Like, it hurts them in the first year or so, but very quickly they have, you're basically creating more enemies for no reason. Okay. And in that process, they're relying on one another. People are, of course, going to adapt. This is so funny because Nate definitely did not read anything I wrote. I'm shitting on the Democrats and he thinks I'm defending them. There's more money in progressive circles than in conservative circles. Harris raised more money than Trump. If Taylor Lorenz is mad that she's not getting more subscribers, maybe it's because she doesn't offer a good product. Wait, what? I didn't disclose any personal details like my birth date, home address, family info, etc. because my family members and even people remotely affiliated me have been harassed and swatted at their homes thanks to reactionary people like you misrepresenting my work and inciting outrage. People like Nate Silver talk such a big game on Twitter, but they'll never engage with me directly. They'll never join me on Substack Live. They'll never have an IRL conversation. They just rant about me and lie about my beliefs to their million-follower echo chambers. Lame. Yeah, I don't think Taylor Lorenz... I don't really understand this. I think people... I don't know how people clip chimp a fucking article. Taylor Lorenz on the glaringly obvious reason why the left can't compete with the right-wing influencer ecosystem. Leftist channels do not receive widespread financial backing from billionaires or large institutional donors, primarily because leftist content creators support policies that are completely at odds with what billionaires want. This is correct. Left-leaning influencers argue for things like higher tax on the rich, regulations on corporations, and policies that curb the power of elites. Wealthy mega donors aren't going to start pouring money into the media ecosystem that directly contradicts their own financial interests. And so progressive content creators on the left rely on meager crowdfunding efforts to make a living. To turn around and to say, well, Kamala Harris outraised Donald Trump is so fucking stupid. Yes, there were more people that were interested in giving money to Kamala Harris. The Democratic Party and its own organs are not interested in even associating themselves with the independent media ecosystem on the left in the way that very obviously right-wing content creators, independent and mainstream alike, get directly funded by the very same people that are funding the think tanks that are giving them the talking points. That's it. And it's objectively correct. It is objectively correct. Nate Silver is, once again, objectively incorrect. What a fucking idiot. Nate just said grassroots fund your entire media ecosystem. That's not the result here. Yes, that is why there aren't as many people like myself out there, because it's endlessly difficult to get to a point where you can rely on subscriptions, okay, and maintain a successful media product, even from a jump-off point. For a lot of people, the starting funds necessary to build to build a successful media company requires a lot of capital, like upfront capital. Like, I got endlessly lucky and I worked very hard. And that's the reason why I got to the point that I got to. But there's a reason why there aren't a million examples of me, in the same way that there are a million untalented fucking hacks on the right. Because Prager University, Daily Wire, these guys are backed by billionaires and millionaires early on that fund them fund them to the tune of tens of millions of dollars. There are plenty, like, right-wing billionaires and millionaires understand the necessity of propaganda. Okay? They understand it. They know how valuable it is. They know how valuable it is to distract people into thinking that the real problem is like trans people or undocumented migrants, and not, directly themselves. There's also no cross-pollination of the media in the leftist media ecosystem with any sort of institutional backing. Like, there is no mainstream to independent content cross-pollination occurring in the way that it does on the right. Okay? And the example I always use is Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk and myself started around the same time. Charlie Kirk started Turning Point USA by begging Foster Friess and many other right-wing multi-millionaire donors to give him money so we could do propaganda. He wrote a fucking high school essay. Okay, he wrote an essay on when he was in high school about how, like, black and brown people were stealing his position at West Point, potentially, with no evidence whatsoever. That essay landed on Breitbart, and a week later, he was on Fox News. Okay? The Democratic Party's fundraising capabilities bears no weight on this analysis whatsoever. If anything, the Democratic Party is caked up, but they are completely outside of the orbit. They are completely outside of the orbit of independent content creation in general. Elon Musk might buy MSNBC and turn it into another Fox News. If you buy MSNBC, I would like Rachel Maddow's job. I will wear the same outfit and glasses. I will tell the same lies. Deal. The most entertaining outcome, especially if ironic, is most likely. Yeah, they're going to buy MSNBC and make another fucking right-wing channel, and it's going to be gangbusters. Okay? It's going to pop off. It's going to be so successful. Great. For those right-wing multimillionaires, like killing two birds with one stone, they distract people from real issues and they get to shape the world into the conservative hellscape they want it to be with their dollars. Distracting people with trans issues both distracts and attempts to push their worldview. Yes. Oh. Hassan, buy Newsmax and make it a socialist media platform, lol. Yeah, dude. I have the same level of fucking wealth as Elon Musk, so I can just like buy a news network with ease. With what money? Okay. I currently have 81,000 subscribers. I would need to have 1 million subscribers to arrive at Elon Musk level. Not even Elon Musk level. I wouldn't even put a dent in that. Okay. So keep subscribing. Maybe we'll get there. But you have a $10 trillion mansion. I know. I'm the fucking wealthiest. Me and the wealthiest person on the planet. I'm Albanian Muslim. Free the Israeli people. You Hamas terror supporter. Third leg 91. What? Yeah, I was, hold on. Let me call up Hamas real quick and free the Israeli people. Fun day staple. Hello. Daily dose. Oh yeah, we can do daily dose. I haven't done it in a minute. Thank you, EPMB, for the 5 gifted subs. We don't claim him. He's no Albanian. Thank you, Machine Gun Kitte. When is the league arc starting? It's not. What else are we talking about? Okay, we did that. Wait, what was this one?
This video is sponsored.
Oh, we got World's Creepiest Dating Coach. We got a lot of fucking fun videos lined up. We'll do the Korean gender stuff too. Pretty sure you are closer to me financially than you are to Musk. Yeah, 100%. What? Yes. Of course. Every single person in this community, including myself, is closer to homelessness than we are to Elon Musk. Like infinitely closer to homelessness than we are to Elon Musk. The very notion that reality is lost upon so many people is because of the concerted effort of propaganda and how successful it has been. Chris from work, thank you for the 5 tier 1 gift to subs. Spoken like a true socialist. I'm not close to homelessness. I'm Chinese. We have one of the highest home ownership percentages. Lamau, not gonna lie, dude, you 100% you have chatters who are much richer than you. I mean, yeah, I have the Qatari Oilers, obviously. So, there are definitely much wealthier chatters, but probably not many. Bill Gates is closer to homelessness than he is to Elon Musk, and Gates has 100 billion. Musk has 300 billion. Not gonna lie, that was the one line you dropped in an H3 interview that radicalized me back in 2020, Lamau. Nam Biryani, thank you for the 5 gifted subs. Yeah, people don't understand how much larger a billion is than a fucking million. Like they just don't get it. And be outside of that point, times that by 300. All right. Let's watch how Israel uses sex to sell Zionism from Uncivilized.
Has used sex to sell Zionism, to convince people that Israel is a hot fantasy
being realized by hot people, not a racist settler colony built on the killing, displacement, and erasure of the indigenous Palestinians. This is intentional, and there are 3 reasons why. They involve Israel's invention in the past, cover-up in the present, and survival for the future. And this all started when Zionists first started plotting for the creation of a Jewish homeland in the late 1800s. For centuries in Europe, stereotypes of Jews were that they were weak, pale, and frail. And the Zionist movement came to see it this way too, widely criticizing the weak, old Jew. In 1898, at the Second Zionist Congress in Switzerland, the co-founder of the Congress, Max Nordau, called for a new Judaism, a muscular Judaism, and invented the idea of the new Jew. This Jew would be rugged, muscular, strong, and tanned, and would have the mental and physical strength to realize the goals of Zionism and colonize Palestine. They called themselves Sabra, the prickly pear fruit in Hebrew, to represent what they saw this new Jew to be.
See, if we had watched this, we would have known what Sabra actually means, because I didn't know until the I didn't know that there was a definition of Sabra beyond the fucking dog shit hummus until the Sabra hummus gate, the peak of anti-Semitism that has occurred in the world, really. The worst incident of anti-Semitism that anyone has ever seen, that landed, 5 people in Twitch prison for 30 fucking days. Oh my God.
And prickly on the outside, but tender-hearted and sensitive on the inside. And, of course, native to the land. Of course, the sabr, as it's called in Arabic, is a fruit indigenous to Palestine, appropriated for the Zionist fantasy of indigeneity. But anyway.
The men who came out to found this colony had never handled a plow, but they were possessed by 3 ideals: land, liberty, and labor.
It is these new Jews that created the Zionist militias that planned and orchestrated the Nakba, the mass-scale killing and displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, ending with the creation of Israel. And those same militias would become the Israeli army, the violent occupying force overseeing the colonization of Palestine today. And it's through this army that the visual of the new Jew lives on. But then with time, this visual became the only visual of Israel. This was a problem. In the early 2000s, surveys in the US were showing that Israel had a big PR problem with men aged 18 to 35 who just saw Israel as a conflict zone and weren't interested. So another rebrand was due, and the solution this time was bikinis. In 2007, the Foreign Ministry and the Ministry of Tourism arranged for a photo spread in Maxim magazine, one of the most popular men's lifestyle magazines at the time. The brains behind this initiative at the Israeli consulate in New York said the models were, quote, a Trojan horse to present Israel as a modern country with nice beaches and pretty women. This video is from the official Israel in New York YouTube channel.
So you should come to Israel. We have a beautiful country, great food, great culture. Come to Israel. Beautiful girls as well. See you at the party.
This strategy, also called bikini diplomacy, has been seen all over since, with Israel constantly selling the image of a liberal, free country where it's always summer, where the days are full of beaches, bikinis, and chiseled bodies, and the nights are spent in an incredible nightlife scene open to anyone and everyone. In the face of this fantasy, Palestinians come off like a backwards, pesky nuisance trying to disrupt this liberal orgy utopia, not like colonized people looking for freedom and dignity. But that was in a time before social media, where only the powerful had access to a platform. Times have changed, and so the sexy offensive has had to adapt. All over TikTok and Instagram, you can find videos of Israeli soldiers posting thirst traps or dancing videos. Some of them act independently, while others are part of a concerted effort putting attractive women in the occupation forces in the public eye. Like the women at Alpha Gun Angels, a gun modeling and social media marketing agency who sell being a colonial foot soldier as a sexy lifestyle.
But listen, I've been in the army, I'm Israeli, I'm tough.
Thirst traps aren't only reserved for women, but for weapons as well. And beyond selling sex, they're selling colonial occupation as fun, relatable, and empowering. They love gay pride content, girl boss content, and jumping on TikTok trends. Of course, the great irony is that none of these liberal values are extended to Palestinians. They live under occupation, regardless of what they identify as. In that, colonialism does not discriminate. When the Palestinian reality started reaching people around the world, the strategy had to change. Whereas the goal before might have been to rebrand and repackage Israel, the goal now is to distract and whitewash. So bikinis were traded in for military uniforms. Fine, military occupation is a part of the reality, but it's not what you think. It's empowering and fun and sexy. Do you really think people this fun, young, and free would have it in them to commit war crimes? The public
Waifu, get in, loser. We're going to capture some Muhammads. Dude, so much of it is just like unrestricted Islamophobia too, because it's so normalized. You could just like get away with it all the time, just actively dehumanizing the enemy. It's just is really fucked up. What? Logs, please, sir. Really important, please. Read, could you have Eli Valley on? His book, Diaspora, a boy delves into the white, constructed sexual and masculine created Israeli identity, which is all about this. His talk was amazing on it. I could, yeah. Eli Valley is the GOAT. A big fan of his for quite some time. Incredible cartoonist. Yeah.
perception of Israel is essential to its survival. But so is something else, that there are enough settlers there to keep up the colonizing. That brings us to the final reason Israel uses sex to sell Zionism. So Jewish Zionists have more kids with other Jewish Zionists. Have you ever heard of Birthright? It's an all-expenses paid trip to Israel that young Jews across the world are eligible for.
Doesn't seem like an Israel-only thing, though you see that everywhere, especially now in Europe. Oh, absolutely. No, this is directly a consequence of 9/11. Like, this is post 9/11 shit. Like, Orientalization obviously has always played a major role. Orientalism has played a major role in Israeli culture, certainly, right? In dehumanizing Arabs. Like, they've been doing this for 76 years. At this point, it's like, you know, you can't keep up. You can't keep up a apartheid regime without actively dehumanizing the other. Having said that, however, the onslaught of Islamophobic, anti-Arab Orientalization, the Orientalist propaganda, paired up with a healthy dose of Western chauvinism that was the underpinning of the global war on terror, that justified the global war on terror, that faucet opened up post 9/11. Okay? For the rest of the world, I mean. And I think that plays a pretty good, like a pretty important role in a lot of the defense of Israel, that oftentimes is not even a defense of Israel's actions at all, but instead is directly offense against those who have been branded as enemies of Israel, right? And you see it. I mean, you see it in this community quite frequently. This is something that I have to deal with on a regular basis. The idea that, like, we have already created the terrorism designation, and that carries a lot of weight with it. And it's actively, it's actively deployed in a way to undermine the positions of people who are offering any sort of context or nuance to how. What is this? Where did this guy come from? What did he say? What if I have Islamophobia? You're giving no reasons to why, e.g. an atheist shouldn't be afraid of Sharia and Salafist jihadis. I'm a Western civilian. I'm Islamophobic. I don't know why you say this is some problem. We don't have to ban this guy immediately. Okay. As far as like the underlying Islamophobia that you have, just so you understand, you are basically saying like, okay, I'm a Western man living in living in the United States of America. Like, yeah, I'm afraid of black people. Like, what of it? It's the same exact principle. It's just bigotry of a different sort. The fundamentals there, however, is choosing not to understand this massive population of people and the diversity of opinion within this massive population of people and monolithizing them, while in the process of identifying silly things that you misunderstand, like Sharia, right? And also then pointing to Salafist jihadists, okay? Like, what percentage of Muslims are Salafist jihadists? It is equivalent to assuming every single Christian is a Westboro Baptist Church member, okay? Every single Christian globally is a Westboro Baptist Church member who is actively also engaged in racialized hate crimes, right? You're pointing to a tiny, 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 minuscule percentage. Okay, 98% of Muslims are great, but what about the radicals? Islam I don't like, especially not the Salafi jihadists. Groups like Hezbollah are radical. You're grouping people like Hezbollah with Salafi jihadists, which is hilarious because this is what I mean all the time when I say like reactionary thinking is illogical and Islamophobia of this sort is unironically causing you to misunderstand the situation. Hezbollah is an enemy of Salafist jihadists, like a very active enemy of Salafist jihadists. Now, you might consider them to be fundamentalist as well, even though they are Shia, which is a totally different sect. And in their day-to-day practical application and their associations or like the actions they take, you know, they are diametrically at odds with Salafist jihadists. Salafist jihadists, on the other hand, for the most part, are also fundamentalists of the Sunni variety that are directly backed by the American State Department. Okay? Like in order to have this conversation, I have to describe to you all of these different concepts that you have fundamentally misunderstood. And then have you be charitable every step of the way so that you can actively relearn what the correct definitions of these things are. Okay? Like, Sharia is an application of religious doctrine, okay, for any number of different laws. For the most part, it was heavily localized, okay? Most Muslim countries do not engage in Sharia law, and Sharia law is not what you understand it as, for the record, okay? But there is not like a real application. Sharia in its actual application comes from centralization that occurred after Western colonialism in a lot of these areas that were Muslim in general. And as far as Muslim Brotherhood and Salafist jihadists are both radical and both want to enforce Sharia over everyone, I think this has no bearing on the overwhelming majority of Muslims that are living their day-to-day experiences, their day-to-day lives, as much as the direct undermining of the entirety of the Muslim world, with some exceptions, by Western imperialism. If you're constantly at threat of destabilization, or if your government that doesn't really capture your interests whatsoever has been completely captured by the American State Department, for example, if you're just a client state that is kept incredibly poor, not allowed to develop, and the people's wishes are not necessarily the people's demands and wishes are never represented in those governments, but those governments never go away because they get American military contracts and American weapons, and they can violently squash any sort of dissent. you will never be able to arrive at civil liberties and a civil rights movement in any of these countries, despite the fact that there are very real interests in the same exact ways that we had in the United States of America in fixing and modernizing a lot of these societies. Having said that, Islamophobia also dictates the false notion that like every single one of these Muslim majority countries are the exact same. But we are under control over the CIA. People's demands and wishes aren't represented. We still have a sort of colonialist government. Wait, what? I think it's also additionally ironic to have this conversation when we are watching Christian theocracy overtake the United States of America by a guy who's not really religious at all, but is utilizing that as a weapon and has done it now successfully twice, okay? Like you have Christian nationalism as a nascent movement. At a time when religiosity has gone down in the United States of America, Christian nationalism is thriving at the tippy top of American society. And you're literally watching material conditions get undermined in a meaningful way in the United States of America, which is the wealthiest nation on earth, even a place like this that has solid infrastructure and has been the dominant force, the global hegemonic superpower for the past century at this point almost. And even here, you watch people's living conditions worsen and Christian nationalism grow in a openly fascist way, but you cannot comprehend how that could manifest in countries that have been bombed into oblivion. Okay? That's it. The question I have for many liberal, progressive-minded people in this chat is, do you agree with Donald Trump? Do you agree with the way that Donald Trump is redirecting society? Or do you understand how maybe even your immediate relatives have felt have fallen captive to the alluring nature of American fascism and Christian nationalism? Maybe some of them are voting for Donald Trump because they don't believe that he is actually he is going to implement Christian Sharia. Okay? Maybe some of them are voting for that exact same reason. But ultimately, it's not your wishes being represented by the government, right? If you can understand this in the United States of America, you should be able to understand this in all of these other nations that are being also, on top of everything else, destroyed deliberately, actively, through direct boots on the ground military warfare. That's my point. Treat everybody like normal human beings. If you don't have the capacity to understand where people are coming from, try to draw parallels within your own experience. This is at the heart of my commentary. That's it. And I think when you understand that, you recognize that it's not about Islam at all. It's not about Islam whatsoever. All religion is subject to interpretation. Religion is just a galvanizing principle. It can be used for good. It can be used for bad. Okay? These countries do not become fundamentalist because of Islam. They become fundamentalist because they are led by fundamentalist forces, sometimes directly propped up by the United States of America with foreign intervention, or as a direct consequence of being the only game in town that will actively fight against foreign invaders, like in the case in Iran, and foreign interference in the case of Iran. That's it. And unfortunately, it's a never-ending cycle of violence that we recreate, basically, and then we look at the results of said violence, and then we turn around and say they're barbaric. We have to keep doing this to them. We have to keep doing this violence to them. But ultimately, it's illogical. So if you care about critical thinking, if you care about being logical, okay, you have to try and understand how people get to the points that they're in and whether or not people are actually fond of these groups, ultimately. There is a reason that I talk about Ansar Allah in Yemen quite a bit. The Ansar Allah movement, once again, backed by Iran to a certain degree, is a minority leadership, okay? And the other factions inside of Yemen directly engaged in war in Yemen that caused endless famine and has been considered a genocide by international organizations, international human rights organizations, right? Saudi Arabia and the UAE had their own individual forces they were backing, they were arming, and that they were funding and also offering logistical support to. America was giving both Saudi Arabia and UAE the support necessary so that they could support the Yemeni population and the militia movements there. But what caused Ansar Allah to become the official government of Yemen? What caused the uprisings basically to end and everyone to put down their weapons and stop fighting with one another and engage in I guess some semblance of unity? It was the Ansar Allah government's actions against the state of Israel after Israel declared genocide on Gaza. Okay? Aren't you doing a whataboutism though? Can't we just agree that any theocracy is silly and often leads to a subjugation and persecution of types of people? No, I'm not doing a whataboutism. It's not whataboutism when I'm directly explaining the historical context in which how people arrive at a theocratic form of governance. What the fuck are you talking about? You just learned a word, okay, and you think you can apply it in this circumstance. I'm not doing whataboutism in this situation. I'm directly explaining to you the historical framework as to how countries become theocracies to begin with. What the fuck? Historical analysis, when directly talking about the countries, especially when we're talking about Islamophobia, is not whataboutism. It's just historical analysis. Yeah, my Iranian American wife was elected to the state house last cycle. Her centrist opponent says she may be beholden to the Ayatollah during their debate. Most of the audience didn't even notice or get that it was a ridiculous statement. Islamophobia is out of control, even in liberal circles. Yes. Does that make sense, chatter? I'll shut up for now, and I thank you, but I hope you understand. Many are afraid of religion and extremists within, especially Islam. I don't wish to be, but there's literally extremists who want to kill others. I understand it's by and large to blame on Western influence. Also, the same could be applied to Christians. I also think Christian groups in Africa, some Christian groups in Africa are scary. Okay, brother, here's the difference. Here's the other side of this conversation that you also don't understand, but I think you're close to getting it, okay? We live in a Christian nation that is overwhelmingly dominated by white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. That is in our history, right? In the United States of America. When George W. Bush says, God told me to invade Afghanistan, okay? Or when the Republican Party is backed by a white evangelical Christian Protestant base of support that believes in the rapture and has a theological justification for its endless support for Israel, for example, we do not read that as like the entirety of the American Christian movement. We don't look at the war on terror as a global Christian jihad against Muslims, right? We don't see that as that because we live in it. So we have the capacity to understand that these are some people who believe this kind of insane shit, okay? And that most normal people don't agree with it, and that we don't really have a democratic voice in this process. But you never extend that level of charitability and analysis and nuance to the Muslim world. That's the point. Okay? That's it. Do you understand? True, I find that scary, but they don't target me. Yes, at least you're recognizing why you don't see it in the same way, though. That's it. And my goal here is to explain to people. My goal here is to explain to people that like people are just the same everywhere. Okay, they are. If they were brought into the same material circumstances, they would have very similar results. It would have very similar outcomes in general. But the notion that like extremist Muslims could target you and present a serious threat to you is also silly. Like a lot of people say this about Hamas, right? Hamas are religious fundamentalists. Like not every single person in Hamas is a religious fundamentalist. Many have been radicalized directly as a consequence of Israel killing their family members. Having said that, though, Hamas has never operated outside of the boundaries of Gaza because they can't leave Gaza with ease. Okay? And they have a singular purpose, which is the end of the Israeli apartheid, the end of Israeli sovereignty over Palestinian lands. Okay? Not only is this an emancipatory desire, it is a singular focus of all Palestinian resistance groups. And the hilarity over here, when you're living in the resurgence of the American Taliban, okay, when you're living in the when you're staring directly at like the Christian fundamentalists dominating your lives in very meaningful fucking ways, you are taught to think that like Hamas presents a much greater danger to you. Okay, they're over there, motherfucker. It's the same with the Houthis. People talk about the Houthis being like this ever-present danger to the American suburbs almost. And it's like, it's laughable. And it's the same as the Taliban too. You got to worry about Al-Qaeda, not Al-Qaeda, okay? You got to worry about the American Taliban, not the fucking actual Taliban over in Afghanistan. You got to worry about the jihad, not jihad. And yet, I think this hyper focus on Islam with a false understanding that like it's scary, okay, and that every single person in the Muslim world believes every single principle of ISIS, which does not represent Islam at all, and is more actively dismissed and fought against by the people there because they don't end up killing that many Americans or even Israelis really. And the Israeli government has actively collaborated with, ISIS-style Salafist movements in the region, specifically in Syria. Okay, they kill Muslims, they kill Yazidis, they kill other people in the region. They don't kill Westerners. Okay, that's the overwhelming majority of the victims of ISIS, and that's precisely the reason why many people despise them. Meanwhile, when you go to the Western world, most people that don't really pay attention to this stuff think every Muslim is like ISIS. You have to look at it in a rational manner and understand the real danger, right? Sharia law was not created after Western colonization. It was implemented based on Muhammad and the Quran by many scholars since the 7th century. I'm a Muslim, by the way, just looking for an insight. No. I said Sharia law and its understanding in the Western world is very different than its practical application in areas where it was heavily localized. Every fucking locality had very different opinions on what kind of laws that they might implement. Okay? Americans, when they think Sharia law, they think hands are getting chopped off if you steal anything. They think that like women are getting killed, they're getting stoned to death over and over and over again, and they're thinking beheadings. Okay. Having said that, Sharia law, while I disagree because I am a secular person myself, I do on principle disagree with like a religious application of or any sort of laws applied. Because of an interpretation of religious dogma. I don't agree with that on principle. I disagree with it, obviously. But having said that, if you want to understand, historically speaking, this was never a real doctrine applied universally across the globe, and even past the point of local Sharia governance. Okay, like. That was very different from region to region or even locality to locality. The centralization of Sharia as a religious code to be applied into any sort of like real governance came after the point of colonialism. Okay. The explanation you gave of Christian Sharia law and the Al-Qaeda was perfectly effective in getting my normie family members to chill about this shit. It does put things into perspective. Yes. Aisha Esquire, thank you for the 5 get the subs. Aisha Esquire also says any ethno-state is bad and government will corrupt religion and vice versa a Muslim. Yes. The problem in these circumstances is that like when material conditions worsen, just like in the United States of America, the reactionary movements grow. Okay. And religious fundamentalists take advantage of that. Always. And that is historic. That is historically important. And that's precisely what happens everywhere. In America, it's Christians. You know, in the Muslim world, it's, of course, Muslim fundamentalists. That's it. Also, doesn't Sharia mean law? So Sharia law just means law? Yes. It's like saying chai tea. Chai is just tea. Or non-bread. Or I guess the English version of it is ATM machine. If only people understood they shouldn't confuse Islam with conservatism. Exactly. My anger and my frustration always has been with reactionary ideals, conservatism. Okay? And that is a universal principle that I apply. If you don't think that there are progressive people in these Muslim nations, if you don't think that there are gay people in these Muslim nations, trans people in these Muslim nations, feminists in these Muslim nations, you're wrong. Of course they exist. And there are massive numbers. It's just not broadly represented depending on which country you're talking about. I didn't even finish this, how Israel uses sex to sell Zionism thing. I don't know how the fuck we got to Islamophobia because that one chatter chimed in and chirped. And I hope it was a somewhat productive session that caused people to develop a better understanding and appreciation of where I am coming from. But let's round this up real quick.
As long as they're between 18 and 26.
Thousands of Birthright Israel participants filling the seashore with endless smiles, scholars, accents, and 10 bodies.
I didn't really have a connection to the homeland, and I came here, and just everybody's so great, and I'm just like overcome with like connection.
It's like you're high on Zionism.
I am really high right now.
The trip is sold as a journey home for young Jews to connect with Israel on an emotional and adventurous 10-day itinerary where they're accompanied by Israeli soldiers. That's not a coincidence. In the early days of Birthright, the billionaire co-founder Charles Bronfman said, quote, he was bothered that the kids on those early trips weren't bonding with their Israeli peers. His answer was developing the mifgash, the encounter, between Jewish Israeli teens and their diaspora counterparts. These encounters move very fast to what we call hormonal mifgashim. Things happen.
Countless romances from the trips have blossomed into serious relationships and even marriages.
And it looks like these boys and girls like each other a lot. I mean, you might have a lot of Jewish babies coming out of this trip eventually, a lot of marriages, a lot of relationships. Is that part of it?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be eventually, it can be tonight.
It's not a coincidence that intimacy is a part of the trip. Participants spend the whole trip with Israeli soldiers intentionally chosen to be attractive. They're taken out for nights of drinking and dancing, and some even spend a night in a fake Bedouin tent, quote, where participants sleep crowded together, a setup conducive to first kisses.
I remember even on the trip that I attended, there were 2 Israeli soldiers who clearly were into each other. Like they very much had a vibe. And someone made a joke on the trip that you have to save yourselves for the Americans, basically clarifying that they were there to seduce us.
So why is coupling so encouraged on these?
This is, by the way, exactly what Israelism, the documentary, is about as well, and how birthright plays a formative role in basically creating this association with Israel amongst young American Jews. Funded in large part by American Christians, but that's besides the point.
These trips. Well, the originator of the idea for birthright said one of his main goals was to, quote, create a situation whereby spouses are available, because at the time, intermarriage between Jews and non-Jews was at a high, which isn't great when you're trying to build an ethnocracy. To maintain a demographic majority...
Jewish Bag says, this is why I didn't go, I'm gay. Bro, I went on Birthright. It's so funny watching it being broken down. Yeah. Bro, if you're... Dude, this is why I always say the greatest threat to Israel is not Iran, is not Hamas, is not Hezbollah, okay? It's Los Angeles. It is New York. It is Boca Raton. That's it. Why the fuck? Like, why the fuck would you be like, yeah, I want to go and live in Israel if you're like, I love the situation in America, okay? It's great. I am an American. This is a question I present to some of my normie Jewish friends all the time, which is, you're American. The fuck are you talking about? Like, what do you mean? It's just like very hard to shake people off this this notion. Okay?
Over Palestinians, Israel needs Jews to make more Jews. So what better way to encourage reproduction and immigration than through a coming-of-age, euphoric, emotional, and adventurous trip? The reality of Israel's nation-building story is violence, displacement, dispossession, colonization, and...
When I first saw Midsommar, one of my buddies who was watching with me was like, holy shit, this is exactly like what happened on Birthright regarding the whole baby making shit in Midsommar. Yeah.
Settlement. That's not a great brand. In order to get settlers invested in the vision and try to secure the future, sex is a great tool. Beauty and aesthetics and fun are great marketing tactics, and they have tangible outcomes, like more babies. More babies means more people to get conscripted to the occupation forces and maintain the oppressive military infrastructure necessary for Israel to exist. And what better way to convince people to at least look the other way, and at most participate, than by making it sexy?
Do they not select people for birthright chips? Is they're ugly? I don't know the selection process, but yeah, it's short and to the point. It's great.